The day my father tried to drag me out of my high school classroom was the day I realized they would rather bury me than let me say no. I had glass in my feet, bruises on my back, and they still called me mentally sick just because I refused to marry a man older than my own uncle. They told me silence was safety, that obedience was love, that speaking up meant dishonor, but I learned the truth the hard way when my voice became the only thing left that could save me. My name is Layla Noor, and for 17 years I was raised to believe I had no choice. My world was rules, rituals, and shame. My mother ran our household like a fortress, windows always closed, phones monitored. We weren't allowed sleepovers, clubs, or even unsupervised library time. Girls need protection, she said, but it wasn't protection, it was preparation for what marriage control, a life picked out and handed to me like a prison sentence from the age of suicide. They whisper names, suitors, distant cousins, men I never met but who came from good families at Shu. I overheard my father on the phone laughing. She's almost ready, she's obedient, quiet, just like her mother. I remember standing frozen outside the study door, heart pounding like it wanted out of my chest. They didn't see me as a person, just a product, a package to be sealed and delivered, and still I tried to be good. I did everything right. I cooked, I memorized prayers, I avoided eye contact, because if I was perfect maybe they'd delay the inevitable, but the timeline was already in motion. It began the week before my 17th birthday. My mother bought new silks. My older cousin Heba visited with wedding binders. My father started disappearing into the garage for long whispered calls in Arabic. I knew I just didn't want to believe it. Then during Friday prayers they dropped the bomb. We've accepted a proposal, my father said, smiling wide. I'll meet him next week. I couldn't breathe. His name was Yusuf. He was 33, divorced from a family known for discipline. That meant something different in our community. Heba had married his brother. She came to every eyed with bruises hidden beneath sleeves. You're lucky, she told me once. At least they picked someone with money. That night I locked myself in the bathroom and cried so hard I threw up. But what hit harder was what came next. A week before the engagement party I was pulled from school. I'll finish your education at home now, my mother said. It's time to focus on your duties. My only escape, the classroom, gone in an instant. They took my phone, changed my email passwords, cancelled all extracurriculars. I went from Layla the student to Layla the ghost. I begged to go back. We already told the community, my father snapped. Don't embarrass us. That same night while cleaning the pantry I found a dusty box of school supplies from years ago. Beneath old notebooks something fell out, a pamphlet folded, torn but readable. Know your rights. Emergency support for forced marriage victims. I don't know how it got there. Maybe one of my teachers snuck it into my bag long ago. Maybe the universe wanted me to find it. I read it under the covers with a flashlight. My hands shook as I read the words, if you are being forced into marriage against your will, you are protected under us law. Protected. The word echoed in my head like a foreign language. For the first time I questioned everything. Maybe it wasn't normal, maybe it wasn't just culture, maybe what was happening to me was illegal. The next morning I stuffed the pamphlet in my shoe and lied my way out of the house. I told my mother I needed spices for a recipe. She handed me cash and watched me walk to the market, but halfway there I turned and sprinted the opposite direction to my old school. The building was locked. It was Saturday, but I banged on the side door until someone opened it. It was Ms. Martinez, my old history teacher. She took one look at me, disheveled, wild-eyed, holding a crumpled pamphlet, and pulled me into the faculty lounge. I told her everything in a voice barely louder than a whisper. The engagement, the man, the bruises I'd seen on my cousins, the phone taken, the school pulled, the silence demanded. She didn't say, are you sure? She didn't ask, is it really that bad? She believed me. I am calling someone. She said she used to work for Child Protective Services. She knows what to do. An hour later a woman named Natalie arrived, short hair, no nonsense. She didn't flinch when I showed her the belt marks on my back from training. She just said, we need to act fast. But then reality hit, because acting fast in theory isn't the same as doing it. When you raise a brown girl from a tight-knit religious community with no proof of violence and parents who smile like saints in public, we need to get you somewhere safe, Natalie said. But placement takes time, and without clear physical danger CPS might not be able to intervene immediately. But I am telling you the truth, I said. I believe you, she replied, but the system is slow. Suddenly I heard a voice in the hallway, loud, commanding, familiar. My father. Ms. Martinez peeked through the blinds and her face drained of color. Yes, here she whispered. Yes, with two other men. My heart dropped to the floor. Did you bring your phone? Natalie asked quickly. They took it. Ms. Martinez cursed under her breath. How did they know? I don't know, I said, trembling. Maybe they followed me. The fire alarm blared. Ms. Martinez had pulled it on purpose. Back door, she said. Now we slipped out the faculty exit and ran down the alley through a neighbor's yard into the backseat of Natalie's car. As we drove away, I saw them standing in the school parking lot, my father, my uncle, scanning the crowd with expressions that looked calm to anyone else, but I knew better. I knew what those eyes meant. They weren't losing a daughter, they were losing control, and men like them don't let go quietly. Natalie didn't speak as she drove. Her jaw was tight, eyes fixed on the road, hands gripping the wheel like it was the only thing keeping us grounded. I sat trembling in the passenger seat, still half expecting my father's car to appear behind us. Do you think they saw us? I asked finally. Maybe, she said, but even if they didn't, I'll know you ran. My stomach twisted, the weight of it hit me all at once. I had run. I was no longer just scared, I was in open rebellion. I had crossed the line. The one you can uncross. Where are we going? Someplace they want think to look, she said. You Ray, not officially in the system yet, so we Ray improvising. We pulled into the parking lot of a faded motel on the edge of town. She left me in the car for a few minutes, then returned with a room key and a bag of essentials, a toothbrush, some snacks, a prepaid phone. Inside the room, I sat on the bed frozen while Natalie locked the door and pulled the curtains tight. Okay, she said, sitting across from me. We need to go over something. She handed me the phone. Only 3 numbers go into this. Me CPS intake and a lawyer. I trusty nodded slowly, hands still shaking. Layla, what you Ray doing is brave, but it is also dangerous. These families, they close ranks. If they find you, they'll say you Ray confused, that you Ray sick, that you were seduced by Western lies. They already say that I mood already know, which is why we need to move fast. I'll be back in the morning with someone from CPS. Try to sleep. She left, locking the door behind her. The room felt too quiet, too unfamiliar. I sat curled on the bed, blanket around me like armor. Every time I heard footsteps outside, I flinched. That night I dreamed of Yusuf, the man they wanted me to marry, standing at the motel door with a wedding ring and a rope. I woke before dawn, drenched in sweat. By 2 p.m. Natalie returned, this time with a new face, a woman named Ms. Carter. She was kind in that quiet, measured way. I could tell she'd seen a lot of girls like me. She asked questions, some gentle, some sharp. How old was Yusuf? Had I ever been alone with him? Was I afraid for my life? Yes, I answered in every way. She nodded, scribbling on a clipboard. We can file for an emergency protective order, but we'll need to talk to a judge, and we'll need a place for you to go, a proper placement. She made calls all day, each one ending the same way. No space, not a cultural match, to high risk. By p.m. she looked exhausted. Too many girls, not enough beds, she murmured. Just then her phone buzzed. A message popped up and she blinked in surprise. Wait, I might have something. She called someone and stepped outside. When she returned, her expression had changed. Hopeful, careful. There's a woman, she said. Her name is Miriam, retired social worker. She used to take high-risk placements. She's not certified anymore, but she's trusted. She has a guest house behind her property. It's secure, cameras, alarms, locked gate. Will she take me? She already said yes. 30 minutes later, I was in the back seat of Ms. Carter's car, heading into the hills outside the city. As we drove, I looked back at the skyline, my home, my school, my family fading behind us. Would I ever go back? Miriam's house was tucked away at the end of a winding road, surrounded by trees. In silence, the guest house sat behind a tall fence, barely visible from the street. She met us at the gate, an older black woman with sharp eyes and a gentle smile. Her voice was soft but firm. You Ray, safe here, baby, she said, unlocking the gate. Ain't nobody getting in unless I say so. Inside the guest house, I found a bed, a tiny kitchenette, and shelves full of books. He raised 3 daughters, she told me, all strong, all loud. One's a lawyer, one is a surgeon, the youngest activist. You'll fit right. Eni smiled. For the first time in days, Miriam showed me how the cameras worked, how to trigger the silent alarm, how to deadbolt the back door. Then she gave me something I didn't expect, a journal. Write it all down, she said, every feeling, every thought, every memory. One day you'll need it. That night I wrote about the bruises my mother called training, about the silence during dinners, about the way my father spoke of me like an investment, about Yusuf's eyes, how dead they looked the one time I'd seen him. But I also wrote about something else, about the pamphlet and the idea it sparked. What if I wasn't the only one? What if there were other girls just like me, waiting for someone To go first the next morning, Ms. Carter returned with paperwork. She defiled the protective order. A court date was set. Yusuf and my father would be notified. They want like that. I said quietly. They don't have to. She replied, they just have to obey. That same afternoon, Miriam's landline rang. She answered, listened, then her face darkened. Layla, she said slowly, your father's holding a press conference. What? She turned on the TV and there he was standing on the courthouse steps surrounded by men from our community, arms folded, voice full of venom. My daughter is unwell, he said, shaking his head solemnly. She has fallen under the influence of people who hate our traditions. We asked the public's help in returning her safely to our care. The reporter asked if I'd run away. She didn't run, my father replied. She was stolen. My hands went cold. They ray turning the story. I whispered, yes baby, Miriam said, turning off the TV. They ray going to fight dirty. And then the phone buzzed. My prepaid Onia message from an unknown number. This is not over. Come home before it's too late. Showed it to Ms. Carter. She didn't flinch. I'll get the number changed, but remember this, Layla. Fear is their first weapon. Silence is their second. She looked me in the eyes. You took the first one away. Don't give them the second. The next few days passed in a haze of fear, vigilance, and quiet defiance. Miriam taught me how to stay hidden in plain sight, how to keep curtains closed just enough to see but not be seen, how to shuffle my routine so no one could track a pattern. I wasn't even allowed to throw out trash at the same time 2 days in a row. You've seen them do it, she said, matter of fact, watching from their cars, waiting. You never let them learn your rhythm. Ms. Carter brought updates daily. The emergency protective order had gone through. My father and Yusuf were legally forbidden from contacting me, approaching the property, or trying to speak to me at school. They won't follow it. I told her they don't have to. She replied, they just have to be caught breaking it. And that was the problem, getting caught, because these people were smart. They didn't yell or break in or leave visible bruises. They smiled and twisted the story into something that made them the victims and me. I was always the ungrateful daughter, the corrupted girl, the mentally ill child poisoned by outsiders. By Thursday, the online campaign had begun. Fake accounts started popping up. One posted an old photo of me as a child with the caption, please help us find our Layla. She is ill and needs care. If you see her, contact the family immediately. Another one said she was brainwashed. She told us lies about abuse, about our father. She is trying to destroy our family from the inside. That one was worse because it came from my cousin Zaina. She and I had once shared everything, secrets, close dreams of becoming doctors. Now she sat in a video, hands folded neatly, eyes blank as she repeated lines clearly fed to her. She is dangerous, Dana said softly. She convinced me to hate my parents, but they never heard us. She made it all. Yuppie slammed the laptop shut. Miriam came in seconds later. Don't do that to yourself, baby. She is lying, I said, voice shaking. They made her do it. I know, but people will believe her. Some will, some won't. But the truth doesn't stop being true just because they. Ray Lutery wanted to believe that I really did, but when you Ray young, brown and female, and the men in your family wear suits and donate to mosques and call themselves protectors, you don't get the benefit of the doubt. You get labeled rebellious, disrespectful, dangerous. Friday morning, the first real attack came. Miriam opened the front door to get the mail and found a dead pigeon nailed to the porch railing. Its wings were folded, its throat slit. A white ribbon was tied around its leg with a note tucked in. The bird that flies to high gets shot. She didn't even flinch, just called the police and handed it over. Cowards, she muttered. Can't even write in full sentences. Still that day I didn't go outside. I sat curled on the couch watching the security monitors like they were the only thing tethering me to reality. That night I had another dream, Yusuf again, but this time I was walking down an aisle. Everyone was smiling, my mother, my father, even Zaina and me. I was silent, lips sewn shut, eyes empty. Woke up screaming. Saturday brought a different kind of massage. A man arrived at the gate, middle-aged, polished. He said he was from the Cultural Mediation Society, an organization that specialized in helping resolve conflicts between immigrant parents and their American-raised children. Miriam didn't even open the gate. She spoke to him through the intercom. She doesn't want to talk to her family, she said flatly. We only want to help, he replied smoothly, to avoid police involvement. Surely there's a way to resolve this without destroying bonds that took generations to build. Miriam pressed the alarm button. The man left in a hurry. That was a test, she told me. Next time they'll send someone who looks less like a threat, and she was right. Monday afternoon, a delivery driver showed up with a bouquet of white lilies. The card read, for your future, still time to choose the right path, love. Momi held the card between My fingers for a long time before dropping it into the shreddery already chose my path, I whispered, but the worst part wasn't the threats or the lies or even the manipulation, it was the silence from people I thought would care. None of my old teachers called, none of the girls from my school messaged, none of the women from the mosque, the ones who used to kiss my cheeks and call me bright-eyed, Layla, said a word. It was like I'd vanished, like I'd died. But on Wednesday something happened that changed everything. A knock at the door. We checked the cameras first. It wasn't a threat, it wasn't a family member, it was Ms. Rodriguez, my English teacher, the one who'd given me the pamphlet, the one who noticed when I started shrinking into myself. She stood outside holding a box. Miriam opened the God, I am so sorry, Ms. Rodriguez said the moment she stepped in. I should ve done more, I should ve spoken up sooner. Didn't say anything at first, then I hugged her. She held me tightly like someone trying to glue something back together that had already crooked. Brought something, she said. It's not much, but I think it might help. She opened the box. Inside were dozens of pamphlets, updated, expanded, written in 3 languages, pamphlets about legal rights, about forced marriage, about what to do if your parents threaten you, who to call, what to say, how to hide, and at the bottom a folder, handwritten essays from other girls, anonymous from across the district. Ms. Rodriguez had quietly been collecting stories from students just like me. Some were already in shelters, others were still pretending everything was fine. They were out there, she said, waiting for someone to go first. He stared at the folder and something in me clicked. This wasn't just about me anymore. That night I started writing letters to girls I hadn't met yet. Dear sister, if you are reading this, it means you've already done the bravest thing, wondering if there's another way. There is, and you not alienate. Didn't sign my name? I didn't have to, because this wasn't about Layla anymore, this was about all of us. By Friday morning the pamphlets were everywhere. Ms. Rodriguez had worked fast, quietly, smartly. Every school nurse in the district now had a packet. Teachers, especially in schools with large immigrant populations, had been briefed on what to look for, what phrases to listen for, what behaviors to track. We had created a code. If a girl asked for a history tutoring sheet, it meant she needed help, but couldn't say so out loud. If she mentioned the test coming up next week, it meant she was being watched. And if she said, I don't want to go home after school, someone needed to act fast. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't official, but it was something, and sometimes something is enough to crack the door open. That afternoon a school counselor called Ms. Rodriguez from a different district. A freshman girl had come in after class, trembling, holding a folded paper that said, she said, I could trust you, that you believe me, please help. Her name was Amina, 13 years old. Her parents had just told her she'd be marrying a 37-year-old man over summer break. He was a family friend. She'd never met him. She said no. They slapped her so hard her lips split. Then they took her phone. She remembered the pamphlet Ms. Rodriguez had left in the nurse's office, memorized the number. Now she was in CPS custody. It was working. Girls were starting to reach back. That night Miriam found me staring at the wall in my room, barely blinking. You okay? Lele nodded. Just tired. You should sleep. Can't. She sat down beside me, her hand warm on mine. You know, when I was 17 I had a plan to. I was going to run away right out the window, had my bag packed for a week. What stopped you? She smiled bitterly. Fear and no place to go, and the belief that maybe it wasn't that bad, but it was. Oh, it was worse. But that's the power of control. You start thinking suffering is normal, that you dramatic, that maybe love does hurt. She looked me square in the eyes. You already braver than I ever was. Saturday morning I got a text from an unknown number. This is not over. You dishonored everyone. We are watching. He showed it to Miriam. She didn't flinch, just filed a police report and forwarded it to Patricia, the lawyer. Patricia called within the hour. Your father's legal team filed a new motion. She said they claiming cultural discrimination, trying to use your advocacy as proof. You interfering with parental rights. Can they do that? They can try, but I'll fight it. That evening the Freedom Network got its first unofficial member beyond our bubbly, a girl named Sophia. She was 15, Latina, and not from my community, but her story was almost identical. Promised to a man 10 years older, told she'd bring shame if she said no. She found one of the pamphlets hidden in a library book, made the call, and now she was safe. For the first time in weeks I felt something stronger than fear. Hope. Sunday came with another wave. Miriam handed me the newspaper page for the headline read, Secret Sisters Underground Network Helps Girls escape forced marriages. No names were revealed, no photos, but our story had reached the public. Comments online were explosive. Some praised it, some called it fake news, others demanded investigations into schools and social services, but the momentum had started. By Monday, 3 more girls had come forward, all different backgrounds, different faiths, same story: control disguised as love, violence disguised as culture, silence demanded in the name of honor, and each of them had something in common. They read one of the letters I'd written: Dear sister, you're not alone, but progress comes with consequences. Monday night while I was doing homework, the house lights flickered, then died. Miriam didn't panic, she moved fast, checking the cameras, her walkie already buzzing to figures hooded at the fence trying to cut the wires. She locked all doors and windows, called Yao and armed the panic. Butoni stood behind her, shaking, my heart pounding so loud I could barely hear. Police are on the way, she whispered, but the figures were already gone by the time they arrived. Only footprints remained and a message scratched into the side of the house with a knife: You will regret this. Tuesday morning, CPS relocated me again, not far, just to a temporary apartment above a fire station. More security, more cameras, but I was starting to see it wasn't about where I lived, it was about what I stood for. They weren't just after me, they were after the idea of me. Girl who said no, a girl who chose differently, a girl who lived to tell the truth. On Wednesday, Anna called again. Her voice was low, shaky, but different than before. They planning something, she whispered. They stopped trying to bring you home, now they want to destroy you, make an example out of you. Howie don't know exactly, but they mentioned your school, something public, something. BG swallowed hard. When soon, maybe this week. Then she said something I'll never forget. They more afraid of your freedom than your disobedience they can handle. A girl who rebels, but a girl who survives, who teaches others how to survive. That's what they want to kill. That night I stared at the pamphlets, then at the list of girls we'd helped. 9 so far, 9 girls no longer alone, 9 who would have suffered in silence, maybe forever, if we hadn't reached them. He thought about every moment I wanted to give up, every threat, every broken window, every dead pigeon, and I smiled because they couldn't undo what had already begun. Thursday morning felt different, not quieter, just heavier, like the air knew something I didn't. Miriam made me tea, but her eyes stayed on the security feeds the whole time. You've got court next week, she said casually, but her voice was tighty. No, I'll try something before Thini. No, but neither of us knew just how far they'd go. By mid-morning I got a call from MS Rodriguez. Need you to stay calm, she said quickly. One of the girls, Samira, remember her? Of course I remembered Samira. 16, smart, sharp, brave. She was the first to say, I am not scared anymore. What happened? Her family found out about the network. She was supposed to meet a counselor this morning, but she didn't. Show my stomach turned to ice. Where is she? They moving her out of state. She texted her emergency contact and then her phone went dark. He was already on my feet. We have to stop them. Miriam called Patricia. Patricia called the authorities, but we all knew once these girls left the state they disappeared forever. It was the oldest trick in the book. We just visiting family. We going on a trip. She needed a break, except they never came back, never enrolled in school again, never answered texts, never existed. Againi made a decisione want to go too. The courthouse. Patricia was furious. Absolutely naughty. Want to go inside. I'll stay in the car, but if she sees me, if Samira sees that she's not alone, it might give her enough courage to run. After a beat of silence, Miriam nodded. I'll keep the engine running. The drive to the courthouse was excruciating. I watched every car, every shadow, every reflection. Every moment felt like it could be a trap. We parked across the street, tinted windows. No one could see me, but I could see everything. Nothing for 2 hours, and then just as I was about to lose hope, a white van pulled up. 2 women got out, gripping Samira tightly between them. She was pale, silent, eyes darting. They weren't taking her to court, they were taking her inside for passport paperwork. They were going to ship her out of the country. And just for a moment she looked at our car, our eyes low. Ketty raised my hand, slowly pressed it to the window. Run. I mouthed the word. She didn't run, but she did something smarter. As they passed through security, Samira doubled over and screamed, my stomach, my stomach. Classic move from the pamphlet. If you feel threatened, fake a medical emergency, draw attention, find a safe. Adult security swarmed. One of the women yelled, she's fine, she's being dramatic, but Samira grabbed the officer's wrist, held tight, said something I couldn't hear. His eyes widened. He nodded, spoke into his radio. Within minutes CPS workers arrived. Police pulled the women aside. Samira never let go of the officer's arm. She had done She saved herself. Miriam hit the gas. We have to go now. As we drove away, I saw a man step out of the white van. My uncle furious, screaming into his phone. Too late, they lost another one. The next day was chaos. Patricia called. We need to file restraining orders against at least 5 more family members, she said, and your father's legal team just filed another emergency motion. What now? They Ray accusing you of recruiting minors into a dangerous cult. My mouth dropped open. What they Ray calling it? Corruption, interfering with parental rights, and they Ray requesting criminal charge. Jessie sat down hard. They Ray trying to scare you into silence, she continued, but don't panic. We've got statements, we've got girls, we've got proof, but I wasn't he. Scaretti was furious. That afternoon I met with a journalist. Her name was Jessa. Ms. Rodriguez trusted her. She sat across from me in a quiet coffee shop, recorder on the table, hands calm. Me want to write your story, she said, but more than that, I want to write their stories, all the girls, the network, the movement. This shouldn't be a secret anymore. You can use names, I said. Of course not. No photos, nothing traceable, just truth. And so I told her everything, how it started, how it grew, how they tried to stop us, and how we refused to disappear. The next morning I received a package, no return address. Inside were photos, a young woman in nursing scrubs standing beside a graduation banner holding a newborn baby, smiling, a note in shaky handwriting. Dear Layla, you gave me courage. After 5 years in hiding, I built a life. I became a nurse, found love, found peace. You Ray, not just saving lives, you Ray showing us what is possible. Fatima, I wept for 10 straight minutes because now I had proof survival could be more than just survival. Sunday brought 3 more girls into the system, 1 from a nearby city, 2 from a neighboring state, all citing pamphlets or the notebook. Our materials were spreading like wildfire, hidden inside textbooks, folded into clothing, donations taped under desks. We had created an underground railroad for modern times, and it was working, but so were they. Monday morning a video dropped on social media. My cousin Margie, surrounded by 4 other girls from my old skills group, all reading from a script. She lied to us. She told us our parents were monsters. She made us fear our culture. The video had been edited, polished. The girls were well dressed, seated neatly, a perfect PR piece. The comments were horrifying. Traitor girl caught. She's ruining families. Send her back to her country. My blood boiled. Miriam slammed the laptop shut. They Ray trying to break you. He stood up. Let them try, because by Tuesday the journalist's story was published. The Freedom Network inside the movement helping girls escape forced marriage, and the use it exploded across the internet. Reddit, Twitter, TikTok. Thousands of women commented, this was my wish, I had this when I was shy. Where can I donate? Organizations reached out, lawyers, counselors, even school districts. And then another text, this time from a 12 words, shy girls in Sai states now have the notebooks. They're making copies. That night, for the first time in months, I slept with my window open, not because I felt safe, but because I wasn't hiding anymore. Let them come, because I wasn't fighting alone now. Wednesday morning started with sirens in this neighborhood. That wasn't unusual, but when they stopped right outside, Miriam was already at the camera's eyes narrowing. Stay here, she ordered. Seconds later her voice echoed through the hallway. Back now. Rushed to the window and froze. A car was on fire in the parking lot. Not Miriam's, not mine, a different one. And when firefighters cracked open the smoking trunk, they found something chilling. Dolls, 6 of them, all dressed in miniature white wedding dresses, charred and melted. No note, no message, but they didn't need to write it out. We knew what it meant. Margaret arrived within an hour. Her face was pale. They've escalated again. We Ray moving, you know, I said. Layla, no, that's what they want. They want me scattered, exhausted. Scarity stood tall, even though my knees trembled. I'm done running. After hours of negotiation we compromised. I'd stay, but with added layers of protection. Off-duty officers would rotate overnight shifts. Panic buttons installed in every room. I'd never sleep in the same place twice, and all my public appearances would be supervised. Wasn't he just protecting me? Anna Marie was protecting the movement. Thursday brought something none of us expected: validation. The article from Jessa, the journalist, hit the front page of a major online publication, the Freedom Network. Hidden in plain sight, it went viral within hours. Comments flooded in. Thousands of women, immigrants, survivors, counselors, even teachers poured their stories into the threads. This happened to my sister. My cousin disappeared in Ailingjiu. I thought I was alone. Where can I help? But the message that stopped me in my tracks came from a 12 words: shy girls. I states they have the notebooks. They're making copies. Whispered it aloud like a prayer. We were everywhere now. Friday the fallout began. My father's lawyer called a press conference on the courthouse steps. Cameras rolled as he stood flanked by elders, community leaders, even women. ID once called Auntie. She is a troubled girl, he declared, brainwashed by outsiders, corrupted by Western ideology. She targets minors, girls who are confused, and she turns them against their loving families. The worst part, they sounded calm, reasonable, concerned, and behind them those for girls from the earlier video, Margie included, stood silently, eyes blank, expressions locked. It was psychological warfare, a narrative war, and they were playing dirty. Patricia wasn't he surprised, expected, but we were not backing down. She released our own response within hours. Statements from school counselors who had seen girls suddenly pulled from classes, teachers who tried to report only to be stonewalled, nurses who treated mystery injuries but couldn't break through family silence, even a few brave social workers who had lost girls in the system and never forgiven themselves. Then came a bombshell from one unexpected source, the retired officer who housed me. He gave a recorded interview describing the late-night retrieval attempts, the stalking, the families who came in suits and smiles to demand their daughters. The girls aren't running from culture, he said, they were running from prison. Saturday morning brought pain. Samira, yes, that Samira called in tears. They found out about another girl in my house. Did they hurt her? No, but she's leaving her dad's putting her on a flight tonight out of the country. Took a deep breath. Do we have a name? Samira paused. She doesn't want to give it. She is too scared. Then give her this, I said. If she ever changes her mind, I'll be here. But Saturday night that brought something else. Entirely checked my email before bed and saw a strange address in my inbox. No subject line, one attachment, a scan of a community newsletter. My photo crossed out in red ink beside it. Layla Noor is no longer recognized as a daughter, cousin, or niece in this family. She is officially disowned. Anyone who associates with her will share the same fate. There it was, the final punishment, erasure to them. I was dead, and strangely it felt like freedom. Sunday morning the dam broke. Margaret texted me for simple words. It's working. They were coming. 5 girls made it to shelters that day. 3 more emergency orders were filed. 1 was intercepted, but not before she told her teacher everything. They watched how they reacted to you, Margaret said, and now they know what happens when you don't disappear. He sat in the back room of the safe house surrounded by boxes of notebooks, pamphlets, and care kits. It had started as desperation, now it was a system. Monday brought the renewal hearing for my permanent protective order. It had been 1 year since I ran barefoot, since I bled on the floor of that gas station, since Ms. Rodriguez picked up the phone. He entered the courtroom and my breath caught in my throat, not because of fear, because of who was there. Not my family. They had given up the legal fight, but the pews were packed with us girls who had escaped, social workers who fought for them, nurses, teachers, volunteers, women I didn't even recognize wearing pins shaped like tiny notebooks. Patricia smiled. Your army showed up. The judge barely let my father's lawyer speak. He tried to claim that since I'd been disowned, the protective order was unnecessary. She shut him down in one line. Disownment doesn't erase threats made or crimes committed. When she banged the gavel, I swear I heard every girl in that room breathe easier. Outside in the sunlight, Fatima stood waiting. She'd driven hours to be there. She didn't say a word, just held me and whispered, they erased your name, but you became something they can't erase. Friday night the Freedom Network held its first official meeting. 15 volunteers, Ms. Rodriguez, Theodora, Fatima, even Samira and me. We created safe house maps, prepared emergency kits, mapped routes through schools, hospitals, libraries, any place girls could pass a message. It had started with fear, it had become resistance. That night just before sleep my phone buzzed. Another unknown number, a girl's voice, barely a whisper. He found your notebook, can you help me? I sat up straight, grabbed my pen. Of course, I said, tell me everything. The girl on the phone was Shizu. Her voice shook so hard I could barely understand her. My uncle, he said, after I die, my parents already gave their blessing. I am not even allowed to leave the house alone. Anna Marie wrote it all down. Her school, the street name, the teacher she trusted most. Do you have the packet? I asked gently. Yeah, it was in a notebook in the nurse's office. I pretended I was sick just to go in. He closed my eyes. The system was working. Listen carefully, I said. There is a counselor at a different school who already knows what to do. I am going to send you to her, but you have to move fast. What if they catch me? Then you try again and again and again until you ray free. That night I didn't sleep because for the first time I Wasn't he just surviving? He was fighting back. By Monday, the Freedom Network had expanded to 4 cities. An organization from DC reached out offering legal support and encrypted messaging apps designed for at-risk teens. They helped us print updated packets that could pass through even stricter family filters, hidden as geometry workbooks and Quran study guides. We tested distribution through clinics, SO programs, tutoring centers. The ripple was turning into a wave, but with that wave came pressure, threats, danger, and betrayal. On Wednesday, Ms. Rodriguez pulled me aside after a planning meeting. Her face was tidy. Have to tell you something and you're not going to like it. She handed me her phone, a video grainy taken through blinds. It showed someone leaving the safe house after hours, someone who shouldn't have been there. Samira, she's been meeting with someone, Ms. Rodriguez whispered, and I don't think it's Sesame. Heart dropped. No way, she's one of us. Maybe she was, but her family's powerful, you know what they can do. I watched the footage again. Samira looked scared, not defiant, not angry, just scared. I'll talk to her, I said, but I didn't get the chance. Thursday morning, a reporter texted Patricia in a panic. Layla's file was leaked. Someone had uploaded pieces of my sealed CPS file to a forum used by certain traditionalist groups, twisting it to fit their narrative. They claimed I was the predator, that I'd seduced girls away from their families, that I was creating a cult. The comments were disgusting, graphic, violent, handle illegally. Patricia promised, but this wasn't random. Someone gave them access that afternoon. The police confirmed it. The leak came from a known IP inside the safe house, a login used once from a borrowed tablet registered under Samira's name. I couldn't breathe. He confronted her that night. She was in the hallway pacing. Her eyes were red. She didn't even look surprised to see me. Why, I asked. They found my little brother, she whispered. He ba Layla 8. They showed me pictures of what would happen to him if I didn't cooperate. Samir, I didn't mean for them to get your file. I thought I was giving them fake information. I thought. She started to cry. Thought I could keep everyone safe. It wasn't rage. I felt it was heartbreak because I knew that story. You lived that manipulation. They're going to hurt you next, I said quietly. No, she whispered. Then she looked up at me, eyes fierce through the tears. But tell me what to do and I'll make it right. The plan was dangerous, reckless, stupid, exactly the kind of thing that might just work. Friday afternoon, Samira messaged her handlers, told them she wanted to meet in person, that she had more files, real ones this time. They agreed it would happen Saturday by PM at a park near one of the old mosques. Be wearing a green scarf. She told them, alone, unarmed, but she wasn't alone. She was wearing a wire. The FBI had already been monitoring the forum where my file was posted. Patricia connected them to our case, offering the audio files, photos, documentation of forced marriages, and now an active leak. They were ready. 3 unmarked vans, 2 undercover agents pretending to be park goers, 1 camera hidden inside a pigeon feeding box. He watched it unfold from a surveillance van parked across the street. Samira sat on the bench, knees shaking at Sunbaying PM. A man in a white kurta and leather sandals approached. He sat beside her. They didn't hug, didn't shake hands. He just slipped her a flash drive and said, this is all we need. I'll get your brother back soon. Then he stood to leave. That was the moment FBI agents swarmed. He ran, didn't get far. They tackled him 5 feet from a family playing tag inside the van. Samira started to sob. Did it, she said, trembling. Is it Inui? Put my hand on hers. It's more than enough. Saturday night, CPS picked up her brother under emergency protective status. Sunday morning, 3 girls from the mosque were taken into safe placements. One of them had bruises, one had a wedding dress hidden under her bed, one was 12. Monday, the Freedom Network's phone wouldn't stop ringing. We had to create a rotating hotline just to keep up. 3 girls from Michigan, 2 from Texas, 1 from a small town in Idaho where no one thought this was even possible. It was happening everywhere and people were finally listening. That night, Ms. Rodriguez brought me a package, no return address. Inside a Usbone video fillet pressed play. Fatima appeared on the screen sitting in a clinic waiting room. He was Shu Waihan. I married, she said. By Shichi, I had 2 children. I almost died giving birth to the 3rd. She held up a photo of her daughters. They will never go through what I did because of you. The camera panned to a wall covered in sticky notes, each one with the girl's name: Layla, Noor, Fatima, Aisha, Miriam, Hiba, Zainab, Yasmin. Dozens of them, real girls, real survivors. My voice shook. We ray not ghosts anymore, I whispered. That night I got a call from an unknown number. This time it was a mother. Tears in her throat. My daughter found one of your notebooks. I didn't believe her. At first I thought she was making it up, but now I see it. Thank you, you saved her life, he cried, but not from sadness, from something else, from knowing that we were no longer shadows, we were a force and we weren't going anywhere. The Freedom Network held its first national video call on a Tuesday. Not everyone showed their face, most didn't. Boxes filled the screen, some with initials, some with symbols, others blank, but the voices unmistakable. Girls who had once whispered from closets in bathrooms were now coordinating routes. Girls once too afraid to speak were training volunteers. A girl from Arizona was building a digital toolkit with legal rights translated into 5 languages. Another from Georgia had secured a school counselor alliance to watch for signs of grooming. Every voice shook at first, but then each one grew stronger, and mine, it rang out like a bell. This started with a pamphlet, I told them, and now we are by Isharko are strong. They cheered quietly, carefully, but it was the sound of revolution. Wednesday morning brought news I never thought I'd hear. A state representative wants to meet you. Patricia delivered the news like it was nothing, like she wasn't asking me to walk into a building filled with lawmakers who probably thought I was just a rebellious teen. He read the article, the full one. He wants to talk about legislation. Yes, she said, eyes gleaming, to criminalize forced child marriage without parental loopholes statewide. My heart stuttered, but I am just one girl. No, she said, you raid the girl and they know it. The meeting was surreally wore the only blazer I owned, one that still smelled a little like Theodora's attic. The rep was in his sushi, soft-spoken, eyes tired. He didn't lecture, didn't he condescend, just listened as I told him about Samira, about Fatima, about the dolls in the burned-out car. At one point he removed his glasses, wiped his eyes. My niece's best friend went missing 2 years ago, he said. Now I wonder. He promised to draft the bill, promised to keep it in Layla's law. In the committee notes you gave them a map, he said. Now we need to pave the road by Friday. The backlash hit harder than ever. Community protests in front of CPS buildings, articles labeling me a traitor to her heritage. A prominent imam called me the face of Western propaganda. They tried to frame it as cultural genocide, but I had something stronger. Receipts, security footage, medical reports, testimonies, screenshots, leaked plans. More than 70 girls had submitted formal affidavits. By then our proof was undeniable, and now we had something they didn't. Public support. Sunday night I got a call from Theodora. She didn't even say hello. They want you on Good Morning America. I froze me on tough. Hey, want your story national spotlight. Think about it. I didn't have to think long, because every time I pictured myself on that screen I didn't just see Layla Nouri, saw Zainab still whispering from her aunt's phone in Hadinji, saw Yasmin running across the parking lot of a courthouse with cops on her heels. He saw 5-year-old Amira pretending to be asleep while her father talked about her dowry. Said yes, they did. My makeup set me under bright lights. He wore jeans and a soft blue top, and my necklace with Fatima's initials engraved in silver. The host asked gentle questions, how it started, what we were doing now, how people could help. But then she looked at me, eyes searching. Layla, what would you say to your parents if they were watching right now? The air thickened, the cameras rolled, the whole country leaned in. He took a breath and looked into the lens. He would say, you didn't erase me, you made me unforgettable. I felt my voice shake, but not from fear, from fire. You thought you were burying me, but really you were planting the seed of something unstoppable. That interview changed everything. By Monday the Freedom Network had legal offers from 6 firms, 3 shelters opened satellite spaces just for cultural cases. Our hotline crashed twice from the volume. One girl in Ohio found a notebook tucked inside a language textbook at her mosque. Another from New Jersey said her school nurse handed her a geometry guide and whispered, you have options. We were everywhere, hidden in plain sight. On Thursday I testified before a legislative committee. The room was full. Supporters lined one side, opponents filled the other, some in suits, some in robes. All Salani sat alone at the front. Hard Pundinji told them about girls married off at Shigzai, about doctors who'd seen torn bodies and been forced to say nothing, about how the system was built to look away. You want to know what cultural preservation is? I said it's not weddings at Shusu or bruises hidden under abayas. It's daughters with choices. It's freedom without fear. It's truth. Silence, then a single clap. Then the entire left side of the room stood one by one. I stood to that night. I lit a candle at Theodora's house. Fatima stood beside me, Ms. Rodriguez too, and Samira holding her little brother's hand. We lit One for each name, a whispered prayer for each girl still in chains, and when we ran out of matches we just kept naming them anyway. Months passed, Layla's law passed in our state, two more followed, the Freedom Network became a 501, see non-profit status. With a board of survivors, not suits, we trained school nurses, gave speeches, built encrypted apps with disappearing chat logs, we printed UI geometry packets, and we kept answering that phone every time it rang. I picked up, even now, even tonight, just now. In fact, hello, I sigh. A girl whispers, I found your notebook, and I smile because I already know how this story goes. They tried to silence me, instead I taught the next 1,000 girls to scream.